Savelle Foy, your cheerleader of dreams. Hey, if you've never subscribed to this podcast, just push the little red button right there to get consistent teaching tools and tips to help you live your dreams. In fact, today I want to talk to you about get your life organized. Well, why does it even matter that you get your life organized? Well, I've noticed that successful people are organized. There is a link between organization and success. Now, you may have heard me say before that the way you do anything is the way you do everything. That's a strong statement. In other words, if you always pay your bills late, you probably show up late. If your bed is always half made, perhaps your book is still half written. Peter Daniel says it this way: if you have a dirty desk, you probably have dirty undies. But that's not what I'm saying. But the point is, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Now, I didn't make this statement up, but I've found it to be true in my life. Well, why is it so important that we get things together and get organized? Well, I love what Stephen Furtick says. He says, what's next in your life is always connected to what's now. What's next is connected to what's now. In other words, how you care for the small areas of your life determines how you'll also care for the big areas of your life. Well, God's the one who said, if you're faithful in the little things, you'll be ruler over many things. I've shared stories in the past of how before I was promoted as CEO of a global organization, God instructed me to clean up my house. Now that sounds so ridiculous, and you might even wonder, could God really instruct someone to get organized, to declutter, to scrub, to clean? Absolutely. Why? Well, again, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So if that's true, if I was a mess, and I was, then my leadership would be a mess. If I couldn't get my house in order, how could I get an organization in order? See, I had to adapt this standard of excellence in my life before I could expect excellence from my team. Well, once I got my house in order, a few months later, I received a major promotion, and it absolutely changed my life. Well, on this podcast in particular, I want to point out that sometimes it can feel like you are having to do so much while others are just coasting along, living sloppy, and getting by with it. And it's just not fair. Well, let me point out that there are different degrees of clutter and disorganization, and it's unique to each person. In other words, what one person considers orderly, another considers a catastrophe, and they tend to marry each other. In fact, I've had many people ask me, just out of curiosity, they'll say, Terri, does anything get you upset? Well, I do have a pretty easygoing personality, and I don't tend to get too disturbed or agitated by much. However, the main thing I identified what upsets me, the main thing that ruffles my feathers, or as I like to say, steals my peace more than anything, is coming home to a messy, cluttered, disorganized home. That seriously just takes my peace. Well, in the past, there were many times when I would get home late at night from traveling all weekend, speaking at conferences, and as soon as I would walk in the back door, I would be greeted by empty pizza boxes stacked on the kitchen counter, dishes piled in the sink, coats hanging across the kitchen table chairs, and backpacks on the table. I would just gasp in disgust, and I could hardly even put my luggage down from my arm before I was grabbing trash bags, disposing of the pizza boxes. That's not the best way for me to return from a trip, with the best attitude for my family. Well, being married now for 26 years, my husband knows how important a clutter-free kitchen is to my arrival, that he consistently makes sure I'm welcomed home to order. Now, this isn't every day. This is only when I come home from trips. Let me make that clear. Well, it makes me happier than I can express when I walk in and see dishes put away, countertops wiped clean, and a birthday cake scented candle burning. In fact, I'll text Rodney when I get on the plane headed home just to kind of alert him that I'm en route, and I'll say, hey, what you doing? And he'll respond, making peace for you. Well, the reason I'm telling you this is because we all have different tolerance levels for disorganization and clutter. Mine and Rodney's are completely different. And the person with the lowest tolerance level will end up doing most of the work to get things in shape. Well, some people have no qualms about leaving their dirty clothes in the bathroom, for a solid week, or walking over a pile of laundry for several days. Maybe I'm referring to Rodney, maybe not. In fact, I read a story recently about a woman whose husband was so messy that she wanted to do a little experiment just to see how long he would go without noticing clutter. Well, when she returned from a trip, she left his suitcase full of dirty clothes right in front of the front door. She said he literally had to step over the suitcase to even get in the house. After a solid month, she called off the experiment and emptied the suitcase. Well, it may not be totally fair that one spouse has to maintain most of the order and do most of the tidying up. But here's the thing. In most cases, they're not trying to be rude or disrespectful. It just doesn't even bother them. They don't even see what you see. Well, that's when you have to hold on to scriptures that say, do everything as unto the Lord. In other words, make the bed, pick up his or her underwear, clean the bathtub, load the dishwasher, do the laundry, file the bills, as unto the Lord. Why? Because your Father in heaven is watching, and he sees every act as preparation for promotion. All those tedious acts in private will bring you rewards in public. So getting your life organized, cleaned up, could be a major prerequisite for your breakthrough. I know it was for me. So your personal standard of excellence, it's all about preparation for something greater. Remember what I said earlier? What's next in your life is always connected to what's now. So God's watching, observing, noticing how you care for the little things in your life. And I'm telling you, when he sees someone paying attention to details such as picking the trash up off the floor rather than just walking over it, or putting things back where they belong rather than leaving them out for somebody else to pick up, or hanging things back rather than just leaving them laying there, he's getting ready to promote. In fact, in the Bible, it says that Daniel became distinguished above all other high officials because an excellent spirit was in him. That's Daniel 6:3. So think about that. His personal standard of excellence brought him from the lowest one to the highest position in society back then. See, Daniel wasn't just your average Joe working an average job. He was a slave. He wasn't married. He didn't have kids. This guy had nothing. He wasn't someone that was like being groomed for success or to be in the public eye. He was considered a nobody. So I think we get the picture that he was like the lowest ranking guy on the totem pole, so to speak, but God's favor was on him. Why? Simply because he had an excellent spirit. So he was actually promoted as head over 3 presidents and in charge of overseeing the king's financial affairs. Now, I want you to think about that. A slave, a former slave, had oversight of the king's money. Scripture says Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes. Well, that word preferred means to be handpicked, approved, favored, adopted, liked, and endorsed. So your standard of excellence can pave the way for you to be promoted when you seem to be the least likely person, the last choice, the shock of the season to those around you. I believe it'll cause you to be set apart and promoted above all others who may even be more qualified than you, more educated, more experienced. I'm telling you, excellence opens doors in your life that no man can shut. Excellence puts you on a path for success. And let me just tell you this real quick. When you feel like complaining because of all that you're having to do while others aren't doing much, I love this statement I heard from Joyce Meyer because I've felt that way many times. She said she was starting to complain about everything she has to do while others, don't have so many standards. And one day the Lord said to her, he said, Joyce, you've asked me for a lot. Do you want it or not? Well, you've asked the Lord for some big dreams, some big prayers, and it's going to demand a big commitment. Do you want it or not? So I want to encourage you, make a decision to get organized and do it as unto the Lord. He's watching and he's ready to promote. So I want to mention real quick that we have a YouTube subscriber this week and they go by this name, Got to Be Me Todd. Got to Be Me Todd. I like that. This is what they wrote. I organized my kitchen and what a difference it made. It gave me peace of mind. It says it might be old, but it's clean and orderly, and now it's a joy to cook dinner. Well, I am so proud of you for taking action and decluttering Got to Be Me Todd. And I want to help each and every one of you with not only getting your surroundings in order, but get your life in order. That's why I'm giving you the first 2 chapters of my latest book, Declutter Your Way to Success, completely free. All you have to do is find the link in the description to download your book and get the first 2 chapters free. Now, for more consistent motivation, be sure to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. And you can find my handles below, or click the little red subscribe button to get weekly videos to make this your best year yet. I want to thank you so much for watching this week, and I'll see you next week.